Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll start this Gittin daf Tes Zayin. We are going to begin on Tes Zayin but Alpha, about 10 lines from the top. Rabbi Yomi. So we were discussing numerous situations where it's necessary to be able to do something in its entirety, but if, let's say, you do half in a certain way, half in the other, are they mitzvah, do they combine? We saw this when it came to a get. There's two ways that we could accept the signatures, either through Kiyam Shtaros, that you have two witnesses verifying it, or through the Tekanas Chachamim, B'fan and Nechtam, B'fan and Nechtam. And the question was, what happens if the Shliach only speaks about one of the signatures, and then you have two people testifying on the second signature, whether that works? We also asked the question when it came to an Erev, because you need a wall which is 10 tefachim, so if it's 10 on this side, but it's 5 because on this other side, because it's the other area is on a hill, so we say Gidud, which is 5, and the Mechitza is 5, is that combined? We also discussed if you wash your hands, and it's Teifech L'Hatfiach, that your hands are moist to make something else moist, but you only did half of it, whether or not that works. So now the Gemara continues. A situation where a person washed the majority of his body, including his head, with drawn water, which Rashi says that you purified yourself with drawn water with a kli, or the tahar, a tahar person, shenafal arosho v'aruba shloshel lugin mayim shuav and tameh. So in that situation, you're tameh, says Rashi, l'truma ad shigit boil, until you immerse yourself. Why? Why do you say this person's tameh? He was tahar, and now all of a sudden all he did was put more water himself. How does it make him tameh? So migzeres shmeina aser davarhi Perikam Masechta Shabbos. So the first Perikam Masechta Shabbos, it discusses, this is one of the decrees, to my time goes, the places where they would immerse themselves in the mikvah. An actual mikvah was very dirty cave water, but it was enough to purify yourself spiritually. In order to remove all that dirt from yourself, they would wash themselves with drawn water. People begin to think, people were thinking, oh, it's not the cave water that was matar, it must have been the water afterwards that purified. And therefore, all of a sudden, people stopped going to the caves. And therefore, it goes away, they made a gezerah on this, that you cannot put these waters on you. This person who was tameh, haba rosh aruba b'mayim shuavim, no. And therefore, b'shuv gazru, they also made a gezerah al tahar, shenafel of shloshel lugin mayim shuavim, de'iloha ulkaimaha. So therefore, they had to make this decree also in its connection. Okay, so that's the din. So, boy, Rabbi Yomi, chetze b'biyah, let's say half of it is, says Rashi, b'toicha kli, was in a kli. The chetze b'nefila. The other one was, it fell on you. Shenaflu, says Rashi, al chatzi gupo shlosh lugin. So on half of you, it fell chatzi lugin, and on half of it, you immerse yourself. So the question is, what is the din there? So again, because it's in between one, you have to use both, because I'm a star of teku. Amra papa hari amru bal kari chayla shenasnu alav tishakab in mayim tahar. So when it comes to a bal kari, says Rashi, if he is chayla, who's sick, so the din is that all he needs to do is put tishakab on him, and he's considered to be tahar. Tahar for what? Says Rashi, the Torah. The Ezra Tikin Tefillah Balakarian. Ezra established that you have to go to the mikveh if you're a Balkari. Kodim Shisask B'Torah. Be'kil al hachayla, we were lenient when it comes to someone who was sick. That we allowed even drawn water that was acceptable of Tisha Kabin. So that's the din. Again, back in the Gemara. Balkari choyle shenas love Tisha Kabin mayim tar. So boy Papa. What if half of it is b'tfil, immersing yourself? Half of you went into the mikvah, and the other half nosim tisha kabin and shuavim. The other other part of your body you had mayim shuavim, so again, that's also a teku. Okay, let's see a couple questions. Fine. Question TA 14. Bedalm and Kaimois. In 4 places we say Emistarfin Bez Chatsoyin Chutz Meget Elohim. So one we talked about when it came to Gidud, about the Arab. Second one we talked about was the washing your hands. Now we have this case, this third case we just saw of Haba Roisha Yevaruba B'mayim Shuavim. And then finally we had this case of the Balkari Chayla. So those are the 4 situations. TA 14, in which we'd say they're not matzaref, they don't combine. Okay. Question TB 15. Boy Rabbi Yomi, chetzer b'biyah v'chetzer b'nefila mai. Boy Rabbi Papa, chetzer b'nefila v'chetzer b'nesina mai. Le'inyan ma I boya hani b'oyin. So it's there I wrote. V'mnesha nachnu osu es tvilas memsa b'mikva o tishakabe b'nesina b'zeh chetziav imheim mitzdarfen. Okay. That was TB 15. Let's put this in parentheses. Now let's see the next piece of Gemara. Echad oimer b'peden nechtav echad oimer posel. So let's go back into our Mishnah. So the Mishnah on Tes Vav and Aleph said the following. One who said, if we had 2 guys, one person said b'fanei nechtav, the other one says b'fanei nechtav, that's posel. You need to have one person that says signature on the writing and the signature. You can't have one person saying b'fanei nechtav and the other person says b'fanei nechtav. And then the Mishnah said, if 2 people came and said b'fanei nechtav, and then a third person off the street came and said b'fanei nechtav, that's posel. And Rabbi Yehuda is machshir in that case. Rabbi Yehuda says, if you have again the 2 witnesses that said b'fanei nechtav and the third person says b'fanei nechtav, he will allow that. He doesn't have any issue with that. And then we had the last case of our Mishnah, echad b'fanei nechtav. If one said b'fanei nechtav and 2 said b'fanei nechtav, then in that situation everyone holds it's kosher. Okay. So again, we're going to end up seeing really Rabbi Yehuda holds its kosher also in the Reisha of the situation where one says b'fanei nechtav, the other one says b'fanei nechtav, that's going to be kosher. But again, there's a machlokus. If 2 people said b'fanei nechtav, one said b'fanei nechtav. However, apparently everyone holds that if one said b'fanei nechtav, but both said b'fanei nechtav, then it would work. Okay, it would be kosher. Says the Gemara. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda Amar Rabbi Yochanan lo shanu. The only time we say this din is Ela she'ein get yotz matachas yedei shneim, where the get was not given to both of them, and we don't have both of them as shluchim. I will get yotz matachas yedei shneim, but let's say it is in both of their hands. Says Rashi, shishneim adukin bo. They're both holding on to the to this get. Shneim shluchim. If both of these guys are shluchim, as we continue to test Zayin and Aleph, the din is kosher. So when it comes to, even though one said b'fanei nechtav, the other one said b'fanei nechtav, but the only time it's a problem is if they're not both shluchim. But if they're both shluchim, then it's kosher. Savar, because he holds shnaim she'aviu get mibedin siyam. You have 2 people that brought a get from another country. Ein tzrichen shem b'fanei nechtav. They don't have to say b'fanei nechtav at all. There's nothing that has to be said. Says Rashi. Why? The only reason why it needs to be said to begin with is because of the issue of witnesses. But these are 2 guys. These 2 shluchim can act as witnesses. You can say 1 second. There's 2 of them. What's the difference if we're dealing with 2 people? So the first case, again, one says b'fanei nechtav, one says b'fanei nechtav. So if it turns out that they're both shluchim, it works. But what's the difference? Even if only one's a shliach, but there's still a second guy, so it's still they can both be eidim. Her answer is, you're right. But lo plug rabbanan ben ba'im chabrush anashim lo ba'yichidi. We don't make any distinction between the two. The in mavchin avol says Rashi kishishnayim havyuhu. When two people bring it, milsan muchacha v'shchichi. This is something which is not common. V'achmor bel rabbanan. So therefore, again, the whole notion of two shluchim coming to have two shluchim is not something which is a davar shchiach, and therefore they're not geyser in that situation. So you don't even have to say b'chanatam, and therefore if one said the other one said the other, then it's okay. So we have this machlokus in a situation where two people said it was written in front of us. Only one said it was signed. So Rabbi Yehuda's machshir. So time to get yotzim matachas yedei shneim. So we're all establishing it's because they're not shluchim. Hagei yotzim matachas yedei shneim machshiri rabbanan. So are you telling me that the rabbanan would actually hold as kosher in that situation? I'm going to lay in. Yes, the rabbanan would say it's kosher in the case where both of them are shluchim. B'chi ein get yotzim matachas yedei shneim b'may pligi. So in the event, if let's say he's the only shliach, how could Rabbi Yehuda say he's believed? How could they even argue in that situation? So you want to say like this: the rabbanan will agree that if both of them are shluchim, that it's going to be kosher, which means that if only one of them is a shliach, the Tanna Kama says is no. But why would Rabbi Yehuda hold as kosher? Says Rashi, Hoyel be'echad meviu, only one brought it. V'hu lo omer ketikun chacham, he didn't say it properly. Amay kamash Rabbi Yehuda. So Mar Savar Gazin Demasalach Levigu Kim Shtaris Stalma. There's a concern the Tanna Kama holds. Says Rashi, Afal Gav, Afal Pisha Haget Yetz Matachas Hachasima V'Hashleachim Nihu Rabbanan Kitrei. Even though one shleach is trusted as two, Vilhachi Kivandoli Amr Nami B'Fane Nechtav. Since he didn't say everything properly, Posel Gzer Dilma Asalchufi, etc. You may end up making a distinct. You may think it's the same thing when it comes to Kim Shtaris. The Eidach Be'edachad. Umar Savul Gazrinan. We don't make such a gezerah. Lish Nachrina. Amalei Amar Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda Amar Rav Yochanan. And if you'll get some Matachas Adei Shneim Posel, even if both of them are shluchim, it'll still be Posel. Al V'Ksav Shneim Sheviu Gem Nisiyam Srichan Shem Ravanenam Nechtam Pana Nechtam. It is needed to be said, and the fact is, since it was not said properly, so therefore it's not good, even though both of them are shluchim. Two people said it was written in front of them. One says it was signed in front of me that possibly Yehuda Machshir. If he'll get Yotzim Matachas Yedei Shneim Pasi Rabbanan, is it true? I guess a different lashon that the Rabbanan would hold even if both of them are shluchim, it will still be apostle. So really in. So b'maikim efagi. So marsav lefi she'in bekin l'shma. Marsav lefi she'in edim asun l'kaimo. So it's all totally on this machlokus, whether it's because of Lishma or Edom and Sumikaimo. So Edom and Sumikaimo, we have two of these people here. However, there's still potentially an issue of Lishma. It says Rashi, Hilchach Shnayim Shaviu get Srichin Loimer. That's why even though there's two people, you still have to say Vahari Vahani Lo Klomamru. They didn't say it properly. So therefore, what Lamer the Rabbi Tanahi? You want to tell me that this whole machlokas of Lishma or Edom Asumakaima is based on a machlokas Tanaim? Well, Rabbi Mataretz Kalish Nakama. Rabbi will hold like the first answer, says Rashi, to ain't get Yotzim Matachas Yedei Shneim. They were talking about a case where they were both not shluchim. Vishnaim Hivuhu, because if there were two people that were shluchim, to Kuliyam Makasher, they would work. Then Srichin Tam, Lafisha in Masuyin, you don't have the issue of the witnesses, when one comes, Oisa Shahayed al Hachasima. But Tam Rabbi Yehuda, Kanaman El, the Kavandi Ikotrei, Amrine Aksiva Los Achufe. So the Tanakama, so Rava will be Matar's Kushnakama. But Rabba Oimerlach, Rabba, who's regarding the second Lashon, will say the Kulyam be in the Lishma. We're talking about a situation where everyone knows. However, because there is Shem Yachsed have a Kukul commit, as we said before. The Marsav Gazrinan. Even though people are experts in Lishma, maybe nonetheless we still are concerned that it may revert back to its original problems. and therefore because they were going to be geyser. I believe like that Rabbi Yehuda Bereisha. So let Rabbi Yehuda also argue in the case of the ratio. One says b'fan nechtam, one says b'fan nechtam. So hayit marla amar ula chol kar Rabbi Yehuda af Bereishayna. You're right. Rabbi Yehuda does disagree, and he holds that in that case it's also kosher. Meisev Rabbi Isha ula. So he asks a question. Rabbi Yehuda machshav bezuvloi b'acheres. Rabbi Yehuda allows this, but not another one. My lav imuti echad amar b'fan nechtam v'echad amar b'fan nechtam. How could you tell me that Rabbi Yehuda agrees? He's chayil in the ratio, but it says that he only holds that's kosher in one case, but not in the other. So it must be it's coming to exclude this situation where one says b'fanei nechtam, and another one says b'fanei nechtam. That's not good. And Ray says no. Really, Rabbi Yehuda holds that it'll be kosher if one says b'fanei nechtam, one says b'fanei nechtam. So what is it coming to exclude? Well, li'mi'ute b'fanei nechtam. It's coming to exclude when there's only one witness that says b'fanei nechtam, of a lo b'fanei nechtav. Since Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned that when it comes to everyone being an excrement lishma, that's going to go, it'll revert back to our problems. So maybe we're not going to be worried about making a mistake with other shtaros, and therefore even with one aid, we're not going to be geyser kamash mulan. Fine. Itmar now, we learn some with this. We have two people, Rabba Baruchana Chol, she was sick. Ol Gebe, Rabbi Yehuda, Marabel Shalibay to see how he's doing. There are two guys that came, do you have to say it or not? So Amr Lahem Ein Srichen. No, you no longer need to. Ma Ilu Yomer Bifanenu Girsha Milam Himna. If someone would come and say in front of us she was divorced, would we not listen? Milo Aminu, we certainly would. Meanwhile, Asahu, as we continue in Zanamad Aleph, Chabara, there was a parsoi, Rashi says, that came. Shakul Shraga Mikamayu, they took the fire from before them. Says Rashi, Shesho Parsim Yoim Eid. It was a special day for this guy. She'ein madlikin or they don't light fire, but osniyom on that day el bebeis avodah zar shalhen. They can only light fire for their idol. So Amar Rachmana obetulach you are Asa. They either conceal us in your shade or in the shade of Devar Asa. Says Rashi, O hachbi enu B'tzilcha, hit us with your shade, or Hargilenu b'tzil b'nei Esav shehin b'chabdana osanu. L'meimar da'oromoi ma'alu miparsoi. So it sounds like the Aromanians are malu, are like more to be concerned over than the Parsim. But Tanu Rabchia Maidach said, the pasuk says, Okim haven darka Hashem knows your way, who yada es mekayma. So Yodei Chodesh Baruch Hu Yisrael shein yachal l'kabel gezeres aromim. They weren't able to accept their gezeros, which were very, very harsh. Amad v'higol yisam l'bavel lokash ahama kamed and neisu chabarei l'bavel hadamas l'basid asu chabarei l'bavel. It all depends when these guys came. Says Rashi, b'mei kazdim nebuchadnezzar ve'evil meroide chabal shatzar. So this was all before. However, after they came, mishe nechbash kodesh es hamalchus u'melech b'bavel. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's see a couple questions. Question 6. Shnai morim b'refan nechtav ve'echad b'refan nechtam pasuk Yehuda machshir. So Yehuda says it's kosher in that case. So my time under Yehuda. What is the reason Rabbi Yehuda that says if two people say it was written in front of me and one it was signed, so why does that work? So Aliba the Rava Kivan Datsuchin who trey Achrine Bimkoima La Sahude Exiva. Since you had two people that came and testified on the writing of the get, Lo Asachlufi became stars, so won't make a mistake. Aliba the Rava Demaru Echad Shalom, Lachad Shalom, do it after a case. They're already knowledgeable. Rabbi Yehuda Sabel Gazin Mishim Shem Yasad Avakakula, and we're not concerned that they will revert to their original issues. TB Adkan.